The Forest's Fate. Jeffrey Sampson's testimony. I went hiking alone on June 28, 2023 because I needed to get away. Away from people, away from noise, away from everything. I had been going through a complicated breakup. Work had been very stressful and nothing in life seemed easy at the time. The forest was supposed to be my reset button. Just me, the trail, and silence. No voices, no traffic, no constant buzzing in my head. Just quiet. Just me and this trail to Hoover Lake. Hours had passed on my hike with nothing but the sound of my boots on the dirt path. The air was cool, the canopy thick, and the deeper I went, the more it felt like I was stepping into another world, far away from any problem I had. That's when I saw her. I hadn't seen a single soul on this hike. A woman stumbled out of the brush, hair tangled, face pale with panic. She looked like she'd been running for miles. "Please," she gasped, her voice breaking. "Have you seen a little boy? My son. He's lost out here. Please, you have to help me. My phone has no service and I can't leave him alone out here." Her desperation cut through me like a knife. Without hesitation, I nodded. "Yes. Where did you see him last?" She only pointed deeper into the forest, her hand trembling. I didn't think twice. I started to move quickly and scanned the dense forest, calling out every few steps. "Hello, kiddo? Can you hear me?" But only the trees answered. I asked her, "What's your boy's name?" And when I turned back, the woman was gone. Not walking behind me, not catching up, just gone. My stomach dropped. "Hello?" I called. Nothing. Everything felt so wrong. That's when I heard the voice. "Help me. Please, help." A child's voice, high, frightened, echoing through the trees. I spun toward the sound. "Hey, I'm coming." I ran off trail, branches whipping against my arms, my boots slipping on moss and wet dirt. The voice stayed just ahead of me, desperate, pleading. "Help me, please, over here." I pushed harder. I had a bit of adrenaline rushing through me until the trees opened into a small clearing. And that's when my adrenaline was mixed with anxiety and unease. A terrifying and disturbing discovery. 3 men were standing there. They looked dirty and homeless. One of them grinned as he lifted a small black recorder in his hand, playing the voice I'd been chasing. "Help me. Please, help me." I felt my blood turn to ice. I knew I found trouble out in those woods now. I felt sick to my stomach. The tallest man stepped forward, a hunting knife in his grip. "Well," he said, "looks like we caught another one." My chest locked. My body screamed, "Run!" I turned and darted back into the forest. Behind me, their laughter exploded, cruel and sharp, footsteps chasing after me. One of the men screamed with a screeching, hideous voice, "Don't let him get away, boys." I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life. I got back on the main trail and just kept running. The men weren't very quick, and they never got too close. But they pursued me for what seemed to be 15 minutes. But I lost all perception of time. I have no true idea how far they chased me. At one point, from the exhaustion of running, I tumbled, slammed through brush, rolled until I hit the bottom of a decent-sized hill. Pain shot through my bad back, but I didn't stop. I forced myself up, stumbling, sprinting. After a while, I could sense I was in the clear, but I continued to keep my pace up, as fast as I could possibly move. When I finally arrived to the road where my car was parked, there she was again. That woman. She approached me again. "Please, sir." She grabbed my arm, pleading. I shook her off without a word and ran to my car and started driving. I'll never go hiking alone again. I am so grateful that I outran them all. I'm not sure what those people in the woods at Hoover Lake wanted from me, and I'll never know. The Collector in the Woods. three friends went hiking on a beautiful spring day in the Golden Ears Mountains. Sam, Kira, and Dylan, three friends from high school that never became disconnected over the several years after high school. They thought it would be a perfect day. Fresh air, laughter, and a beautiful organic trail stretching endlessly into the mountains. This is a trail none of them have ever hiked, but always wanted to. It was peaceful, quiet, and not overcrowded as mentioned in the All Trails reviews. But the deeper they went, the darker the forest became. The trees pressed closer. They hadn't seen anyone else on the trail, and they had almost reached the viewpoint. And that's when Sam noticed the first sign nailed to a tree. It was painted in red, with a mud smear on it. The sign said so mysteriously, "Turn back, please." The three of them took the posting as some playful joke. But then the signs kept appearing one after another, with a message more creepier than the last. "You are making a mistake. I see you now. You will regret this." The group started to feel a little uneased, but they kept going. They were so close to the rewarding viewpoint. Then Kira stopped in her tracks suddenly. She pointed upward with an anxious look in her brown eyes. Dozens of dolls hung from the branches, their faces burned, carved, missing eyes. They swayed in the breeze, creaking softly, tapping against one another, like whispers in the wind. And below them, clothing, torn shirts, mud-stained coats, and boots nailed to several trees. That's when Dylan muttered, "Someone's got a sick sense of humor." And then they heard something. Footsteps in the distance. Slow, heavy, and deliberate. "Who the hell is that?" Sam said. The footsteps grew louder and louder, but they couldn't see anyone or anything. "I tried to warn you," a voice said loudly with a terrifying and demonic laugh from the trees. "Run, now!" Dylan screamed. They tore through the forest, running back down the trail in fear. The footsteps never slowed, always just behind them, steady, relentless. They ran and ran for minutes, but the stomping footsteps behind them never stopped. They were getting tired, and Kira couldn't keep running much longer. "We can't keep this up," she gasped. Dylan pointed to the right with his finger trembling with anxiety. "Get off the trail now!" They crashed through the undergrowth, branches tearing at their clothes, ferns slapping their faces, until they dove behind a thicket of rotting logs. The forest pressed in, every sound magnified by their fear. The three froze, barely daring to breathe. And then, they saw it. Through the branches, a figure sprinted down the trail, tall, fast, and running with a purpose. Its movements were powerful and almost unnatural. Their clothes hung in tatters. In its hand, a glint of metal they held long, sharp, deadly. And on its face, a mask. It was porcelain, pale, and cracked, painted with a grotesque and eternal grin. The hollow eyes stared forward, empty and soulless, as the thing charged down the trail away from the group of scared friends. The figure never turned back. They just stormed down the trail. For a long moment, silence. Kira's voice broke in a whisper. "Oh my God, what was that? Who was that?" Dylan peered over the log, scanning carefully. "We can't stay here. We've got to move." "Which way?" Sam asked. "Back to the car? Down the trail? What if it's waiting down there?" Kira wiped the sweat from her face, whispering, "We don't have a choice. The only way out is going back." Sam stared at her, horrified. "You mean we follow that psycho?" Dylan's voice was low, steady, but his eyes were wide. "Yeah, they went that way. But it's the only way out. If we stay here, we stay the night." Kira stood trembling, but resolute. "Then we go. Stay close. No talking. Keep checking your phones to see if we get into service." Barely breathing and tired, the three friends stepped back onto the trail. The same trail the masked figure had thundered down moments before. Each step forward felt like walking into a trap, their nerves and minds swirling in anxiety. After an hour, the panic dulled. Their breath slowed, the forest thinned, and the air felt lighter. And then, after a bit more time through the trees, they saw it. The parking lot where their car was. "Thank God," Dylan gasped, breaking into a run. Sam and Kira followed, hearts pounding with desperate relief. They dove into the car, doors slamming shut. Sam twisted the key, the engine roared to life, and they tore down the dirt road, gravel spraying behind them. For a moment, it felt like escape, until Kira's voice shattered the air. "Oh my God." Sam glanced back. A doll sat in the back seat beside Kira, its face charred and cracked, hollow sockets staring forward. Kira's hands shook as she grabbed it, hurling the thing out the window. It tumbled off the road, swallowed by the trees. But just up the road, the headlights caught movement. A figure stood in the middle of the road. The mask, the jagged grin, a massive knife gleaming in their hand. Sam's grip tightened on the wheel. He pressed harder on the gas. Kira said, "Sam, you're going to hit them." Sam's eyes never left the figure. His voice was raw, determined. "I don't care. We're going home." The banging in the forest. Matt and Kyle had planned this hike for weeks in the summer of 2024. 3 days through the backcountry, no crowds, no phones, just wilderness. After hiking for 5 hours on the first day, they decided to set up camp with no daylight remaining. The forest had already grown impossibly dark, the kind of black where even the stars seemed smothered. They set up their lanterns, cracked open some beers, and pitched the tent, along with making a fire. When they had just started to drift towards sleep later, it's when it began. Bang! Bang! A violent, thunderous slam echoed through the woods, sharp enough to rattle the ground beneath their tent. Matt and Kyle both shot up with pounding hearts. "What the hell was that?" Matt whispered. The two young men looking at the tent wall, listening eagerly and carefully. Another slam. Bang! Then another. Bang! Bang! A pounding rhythm, like something heavy striking wood over and over again. The sound carried through the trees, angry, deliberate. They froze in silence until it finally stopped, leaving only the chirp of night insects. Neither of them slept much after that. They couldn't find the courage to open their tent and investigate. They just listened and stayed put in silence. When dawn finally broke in the morning, they crawled out of their tent, restless and paranoid. To their shock, they noticed a structure not too far off. Just 30 yards from where they had camped stood a cabin. Neither of them had seen it last night when they picked their spot. The structure was half hidden by trees, sagging with rot, its windows black and hollow. It looked ancient, abandoned, like it hadn't been touched in decades. The two of them slowly walked up to the cabin with bear mace and knives in their hands. And when they got close, there were fresh scrapes on the door. Deep gouges in the wood, as though something had been slammed against it. "Dude," Kyle whispered. "That's where the banging came from." Matt shook his head in disbelief. "No way. This place wasn't here last night." Kyle responded with annoyance. "Oh, come on. Where else did those bangs come from?" They argued for a moment before curiosity dragged them forward. The cabin door creaked when Kyle pushed it, the sound slicing through the morning stillness. Inside, dust coated everything. A broken chair, a rusted stove, a bed frame stripped bare. But on the far wall, carved deep into the wood, were words. In big, jagged letters, it said, "I am a people person." And at the end of the sentence, there was a piece of paper with a big, unhappy face drawn. The generic emoji to express sadness. Kyle swallowed hard. "I think we should..." Before he could finish, the door slammed shut behind them. The two of them, in panic, jumped out a broken window and back into the forest. They went quickly back to camp and packed their things. What was that? A ghost or something? It might have just been the wind. Let's just get out of here. We can get to the summit in 9 hours. There will probably be other hiking groups up there. They hiked relentlessly up the mountain that day, climbing until their legs burned and their throats went dry. Anything was better than being near that cabin. When they crested the summit, relief hit them like a wave. They could see several tents pitched, at least a dozen of them, all neatly set up. Coolers stacked in rows, lanterns hanging, even a fire ring surrounded by camping chairs. But so oddly, not a single person at the campsite. Matt and Kyle walked through the camp softly and quietly, looking around, but no evidence of life anywhere. Kyle muttered, "What the hell? Where are all these people?" He unzipped a tent. Inside were sleeping bags, water bottles, even a deck of cards laid out mid-game. Everything looked as though people had just stepped away for a moment. Except there was no sound, no voices, no laughter. Just the wind whistling through nylon and canvas. Matt checked a cooler, food, ice, beer cans, all fresh. Not abandoned for long. Maybe the group all went to a hot spring or lake? Kyle replied, "There is no lakes or hot springs up here that I know of. They will return, I'm sure. Let's just set up tent near the tree line over there and wait for them." They pitched their tent at the edge of the clearing, close enough to keep an eye on the strange campsite, but far enough to feel some distance from it. The sun dipped low, painting the mountain in orange and purple. Still, no one came back. The summit was bathed in silence. The two talked about the situation anxiously, but what choices did they have? They couldn't start hiking back home in the dark, and it would be extremely difficult to find another place to camp for the night. The two of them both tried to just get some sleep and tried to not overthink anything. Matt tossed uneasily in his sleeping bag, every rustle of nylon making his heart jump. Then, bang! Both men sat upright instantly. It came again, louder this time. Bang, bang, bang! Matt unzipped the tent just enough to peer out. His stomach dropped. There were people at the camp. They were starting the fire. One was banging wooden blocks above their head in some ritualistic way. Over a dozen people forming around the fire pit, all wearing masks and long cloaks, like some kind of cult. Kyle leaned toward Matt, whispering so softly it was almost inaudible. "What the hell is this? Who are they?" Matt's throat was dry. I don't know. The pounding grew louder, steadier, as the masked figures closed their circle tighter around the flames as they were chanting. Kyle's eyes darted to the trail. "We can't get past them. If we move, they'll see us." "So what do we do?" Matt hissed. Kyle shook his head, face pale. "Nothing. Put on your boots and get the mace handy. We hope they don't notice us. And when it's safe, when it's clear, we leave." The two friends sat in silence inside the tent, barely breathing. Kyle kept peering through a small slit in the flap, eyes locked on the firelight beyond. Time dragged. The chanting slowed, the ritual around the flames unraveling into scattered murmurs. One by one, the masked figures began drifting away from the circle. Kyle's heart clenched as 4 of them broke from the group, moving deliberately toward the tent. Dude, Kyle whispered, voice tight with panic. They've seen us. They're coming this way. The two scrambled into motion, shoving essentials into their packs with trembling hands as they get ready for action. Kyle looked out the flap again, and there was no doubts these people were coming to approach the tent. The cloaked, masked people were only 15 yards away. Now, Kyle roared. They both stormed out of the tent and started yelling at the strange people. Matt yelled as he pointed the mace in their direction. Get back! Get back! We are leaving! The cloaked figures froze at the sudden eruption of Kyle and Matt's appearance. The strange people didn't say anything, just stood in their tracks. Matt said with a raised voice, I don't know what's going on here, but we just want to go, okay? One of the figures tilted their head slowly, like an animal studying prey. Then, without a word, they all began moving quickly toward Matt and Kyle. Back! Matt shouted, unleashing a stream of mace. Run! Kyle barked. The two slipped into the tree line in a panic, branches whipping against their faces as they stumbled blindly through the dark. By some stroke of luck, they found the main trail. There was no chase. If the cult had followed at all, they gave up quickly. After nearly an hour of trudging through the night, nerves stretched thin, the friends finally came across a small clearing near a fallen tree. Exhausted, they decided to wait it out until morning. When daylight broke, they wasted no time. Moving fast and with purpose, they retraced their steps, made it back to the trailhead in record fashion. Once they regained phone service, they called family to reassure them, then contacted the police to report what had happened. The officers listened, but with no clear crimes committed. And Matt technically being the only one who had discharged mace, there wasn't much of a case. Matt and Kyle never went hiking again.
Dr. Doom Room Pizza, where every pie is hand-tossed, oven-fired, and mysteriously glowing with flavor. Try our coffin crust special or the 666 cheese melt. It's dangerously delicious. Order now. Dr. Doom Room Pizza, one bite, and you're doomed with delight.